Welcome to Buffalo Late Night. It is Thursday. You know what that means. We're going to be talking about the Bills roster and how it stacks up against others in the AFC East, as well as a bunch of other recent news. Let's get it. Bills Mafia, what is going on? Good evening, man. It feels like it's been forever. It's been 3 weeks since I've been on for Buffalo Late Night. I am incredibly glad that you guys are here with us this evening. Welcome again, Bills Mafia. Happy Thursday to you guys for this week's episode of Buffalo Late Night here on the Cover One Sports Network. Got a great show for you. I am Thomas DeLoss, and again, I am glad you've chosen to hang out with us tonight. Thank you for tuning in, or if you're listening on Spotify, happy Friday to you. You can find our show free on all social media and streaming platforms, including Spotify, YouTube, or however you choose to pod. If you are watching on Twitter right now, come on over to our YouTube page, join the conversation. Also, guys, want to make sure you guys are subscribed to our YouTube page. Hit that notification button. It'll let you know every single time one of our shows is live. And, of course, we are heading into the 2024 NFL season. We are only, a few short weeks away from training camp here in Rochester, New York at St. John Fisher University. So make sure you are subscribed to the Cover One Pass, and it gives you the best coverage, best analysis, everything that you need and want heading into this great season as we, again, strive for greatness with the Buffalo Bills. Tonight, lots to talk about. We are going to be talking about, because I'm a little behind the schedule. We're going to talk a little bit about what Joe Brady said a few weeks ago in terms of wide receivers, how things are going to look, and my personal belief on how the Bills wide receivers look right now in comparison to last year. Had a little conjecture online about this today, so I want to follow up on that. We're going to be talking about some recent news that happened in the NFL, including just a few minutes ago. We're going to be talking about the AFC East and how each one of the teams stacks up positionally, how they look positionally against each other. And then we're going to finish it off with a little stadium talk. So got a lot to talk about tonight, a lot to cover, but I'm very, very excited. I will let you know, just for your 411, since I haven't been here in a hot minute, for all you guys. The reason I've been missing, 3 weeks ago, we went on vacation. 2 weeks ago, my son Griffin, if you are unfamiliar, I have been at the wrong end of my son getting me sick multiple times thus far in the past about 8-9 months. And then this past Thursday, the reason I wasn't here, and I very much planned on it, I had everything set up, I had the tweets sent out, I fully anticipated being here just to be a part of the show. And about 12 o'clock during my day, and if you don't know, I'm a mailman by trade. So this is my secondary job. I'm a mailman by trade during the day. Started walking. I started getting a bit of a chest pain on my side. And it was this side, excuse me. It started moving down in my arm and at the base of my rib cage. And it was a little concerning because I wasn't sure if it was a pulled muscle, but it didn't really stop. My breathing started getting really labored. And it was a really uncomfortable pain, something I hadn't quite, felt at this point in my life. So I called my wife and I told her, I was like, babe, something's going on. I don't know what it is. I'd never really dealt with it, but I wanted her to be familiar with what was going on in my body because it just seemed a little odd, to say the least. So we talked to my grandmother, who was a nurse for 40 years, and said, hey, what do you think? Should I potentially go in and get it checked out? And she said yes. So I took it into the hospital, and initially they thought I was having a heart attack. Based on what I was doing, my elevated heart rate, symptoms, chest pains, arm pains, everything. And I apparently also have something that mimics that of a heart attack. So when an EKG is hooked up to me, it also kind of looks like I'm having a heart attack. So that was a little concerning, to say the least. Ended up getting a CAT scan, X-rays, CAT scan with contrast. I had everything done. They were worried it was an embolism in my lung. Whole lot going on that they weren't sure about. Lo and behold, I had and have some pretty ridiculous amounts of inflammation around my lung and a 2-centimeter cyst in my left side. So, fortunately, I got that checked out. Could have been significantly worse. Don't know what exactly is going on. Still working on it. Have to go get an echocardiogram. Got to go see a lung doctor. But that's why I haven't been here in the last couple of weeks. So I'm glad to be back here. I'm glad to be with you guys. And just kind of seeing, I missed you guys. I missed talking about this. I know we're kind of in the weird point of the season, but here we are. And we'll get right into this. Bear with me. I am sending out a tweet real quick to let everybody know. And if you don't mind, go to my Twitter page at the Thomas DeLoss. Share the tweet that I just shared myself, and let people know that we are live and talking. So let's get right into the first part of the conversation tonight, guys. We're going to talk about what Joe Brady said. A few weeks ago, Joe Brady had talked about, and they had asked him what the offense was going to look like. And one of the main focal points about what he said was everybody's going to eat. Obviously, the header of tonight's show, everybody's going to eat. And the reason I think that's really important in terms of the context of this offense is because previously in the Bills offense under Joe Brady, under Ken Dorsey, under Brian Dable, pretty much this offense funneled through Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis. They accounted for 210 total targets or more every single season. And the reason I think it's really important to kind of look at the overarching theme of this and Joe Brady's comments about everybody's going to eat is I mentioned earlier today, I was talking with some people, and the belief is that the Bills wide receiver core regressed, right, in terms of talent for the 2024 season. And I am of the feeling that that is far from the truth. Now, when you look at last year's offense, right, with Ken Dorsey prior to Joe Brady taking over, from about, week 1 to week 8 through 10, right? Stephon Diggs was absolutely the focal point. In fact, a lot of times they force-fed him the ball. They got him as many opportunities as humanly possible because it was important to kind of get the offense running, right? It was important to get the offense kind of moving. Cheers, by the way. And by doing so, by getting Stephon Diggs involved, you also, by proxy, opened up the rest of the offense. That was very much the ideology of what this Bills offense was and has been for a better part of the last 4 years as Stephon Diggs' tenure was with the Buffalo Bills. And a lot of times what you would see is other wide receivers, other talent on the team would benefit because of Stephon Diggs. By the sheer predicament that defensive coordinators ran into each week of making sure they had him in tow, that they had him either bracket coveraged or had, corner number 1 with maybe a secondary corner following, whatever they needed to do. If they needed to shade one of the safeties to that side of the field, they did that. And by proxy, it opened up other options on the offense. The tough part about that was there was a very steep decline or drop off in the Bills offense. So you saw Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, and obviously Gabe Davis was not as consistent as Stephon Diggs, but when it came to this offense, everybody, knew that Stephon Diggs ate. He did very, very well. He was one of the best wide receivers in Bills history. Fantastic stats for the past 4 years, was a huge proponent of the success for Josh Allen, as well as the Bills team in totality. The problem, like I just said, was after Gabe Davis, the drop-off was precipitous. It was incredible. Where if Gabe Davis was ineffective, which we saw last year at many occasions, or Stephon Diggs was being taken away, there was next to nothing left. And it got really, really hard to matriculate down the field in such a manner that the Bills' offense was very stark. It was one way or the other. It was they would eat, or very much the phrase feast or famine. And so when you looked at the Bills' offense last year in the first 8 to 10 weeks, they were doing good, but kind of like Brett Coleman. And if you haven't seen Brett Coleman's episode, definitely check it out. He just posted a new one. He had mentioned himself. He said, for the Bills in the first 8 to 10 weeks, it was a lot of big plays, but when they got between the 50 and 30 on the other side of the field, they kind of just fizzled out. The offense kind of started and got stagnant at different points. Whereas when Joe Brady took over, once they got to the 50 and the 30, they kind of found ways to keep the offense humming, right? They kept the ways to keep the offense moving. Whatever it was to do, they kept doing that to get the offense to keep matriculating down the field instead of, Ken Dorsey kind of running out of ideas as to keep the offense humming. Joe Brady was able to find ways to, whether it was to, make the run game more pronounced, which it was, or finding ways to get guys open outside of Stephon Diggs. And so that's where my second part to this comes in, is in the second half of the season, your two top options were Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid. And you could see very quickly that the offense was and is more dynamic. Khalil Shakir can play outside, can play inside, has speed, has route running, has versatility in his game, but also has incredible intellect. Dalton Kincaid, for a going into second year as a tight end, is far more advanced than most tight ends at his point, outside of like Sam Laporta or the guys that are typical, guys that have become successful in their time. So you obviously have those two. But my point to this being that if you look at these two offenses, right, last year, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid were a little bit in the second half. But outside of that, Deontay Hardy, who was fairly phased out in the second half, Trent Sherfield, who really wasn't effective for most of the season, utilized a little bit in the playoffs, and he was not effective at all. And then it was just a hodgepodge. There was nothing really there, even to the effect of, I know people love Andy Isabella. Andy Isabella was on the practice squad for almost the entire season, never called him up. So obviously he was not an important piece because he wasn't going to be able to add anything into this offense. Now, when you look at this year's offense, right, for the Buffalo Bills, the reason why this is kind of important in terms of how things look is not only do the Bills have Dalton Kincaid, but they also have Dawson Knox. And Dawson Knox this year, after having a broken hand last year, a fractured hand last year, should see the return of the Dawson Knox we know. A guy that in the red zone has been very, very effective, but also somebody that Josh Allen relies on. I know he's got some iffy hands at times, but he also makes some important plays for this Bills offense. Has, agility, has some speed to his game, has some physicality that we've seen in spades many, many times. The Bills also have brought in Curtis Samuel, a guy that for most of his career, no matter if it was in Carolina or in Washington, has been successful, albeit with some of the worst quarterback play you could possibly imagine. He's still been very, very successful, which tells you, even when he's had bad quarterback play, he's found ways to be a good wide receiver and now receive his third contract. That tells you Curtis Samuel absolutely has something to offer this offense. They added Mac Hollins, a guy that probably will see more time as a special teamer, but also adds a distinct element to this offense, right? That's a big piece. They added Keon Coleman, the first pick of the second round in this 2024 NFL draft. A guy that very quickly in minicamps and OTAs is proving to be an efficient piece and a very impactful piece to this offense. Then you got guys like MVS. You got, KJ Hamler. You got Tyrell Shavers, Brian Thompson, Andy Isabella. Like, there is a lot of guys when it comes to options in this offense. And so the reason I mentioned this, right, in comparison to what people were saying about last year, is if you look at the Bills offense last year, when I said after the first two had struggles, the precipitous drop-off was very, very, it was obvious. Whereas this year, you have receivers, and hey, Steve, perfect timing. Better catching rate, right? We knew that Gabe Davis had a 50 or so catch percentage. You have, Khalil Shakir, who had literally the best catch percentage of any qualified receiver last year. They have better hands, better route running, better speed, and more versatility, both inside, outside, as well as size. You have big guys, you have small guys, you have everything in between. I think what you're seeing now, right? And obviously we'll see what Kincaid is. Kincaid should be the number one in this offense. Maybe it'll be somebody else. Who knows? We'll see how people step up. But Kincaid being the number one, and if he is just a smidge below what a reduced Diggs was last year in the second half, then number 2 through number 6 or 7 is significantly better than last year. I very much, and I said this earlier today, I don't know if you're baseball fans. I'm a big baseball fan. But when it comes to the New York Yankees, if you saw the New York Yankees last year, when Aaron Judge or Giancarlo Stanton weren't hitting, the Yankees were just not good. It was very, like I said, feast or famine. For the Buffalo Bills, when Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs were not an effective piece to the offense, they just weren't very good. The only thing that kept them alive was James Cook and Josh Allen, in a defense that kept awarding them different opportunities based on turnovers and just a defense that stifled a lot of offenses that they played. That's why you saw at the second half of the season, McDermott's defense was 16.8 points per games allowed. So they were firing on all cylinders, but it was kind of like all different parts and pieces helping each other. So that was a big part of this, right? So that's why when I mention this stuff, when I talk about this Bills offense being better, the totality of what they have this year is deeper. It may not be as top heavy, right? You don't have Stephon Diggs. Not to say we might not have somebody that can step up. Who knows what Khalil Shakir is, or maybe Keon Coleman is something that is going to blow the doors off of the league, right? Maybe Dalton Kincaid is that next Travis Kelce. We don't know. But I'm hedging my bets that the Bills offense this year in 2024 is going to provide more depth, more versatility, and more to Josh Allen for what he needs to be successful going forward. Because the biggest part of what made the Bills lose in the playoffs were massive drops at the worst possible times. Stephon Diggs, massive drop that would have been a touchdown. Trent Sherfield, 2 huge drops in very, very pivotal moments, one of which was probably a touchdown. James Cook, big drop, which would have been a touchdown. Those are all moments that changed the course of an entire game and how things have done. Another one, Chase Claypool, apparently a fan favorite for Josh Allen, looking very good to start this season. That's another one you have to keep eyeing. There's a lot of guys in this Bills wide receiver core that can step up and make impacts. And another one is Ray Davis, the running back that we got this year out of, why am I saying out of Duke? Hold on. Bear with me. Out of Kentucky. Sorry, color scheme. That's huge. Another guy that can catch the ball and is very, very effective. So I think the Bills in totality are going to be a much better position group in the depth in what they have. Lower ceiling, higher floor. Exactly. Thanks, Steve. Love it. So that being said, let's, I mentioned earlier we're heading into the 2024 season. There's only 2 guys I really trust when it comes to talking about the cover 1-1 pass. And, they just so happen to be here for me. So Greg, Aaron, take it away.
Many people ask us the best way to support us here at Cover One, and that is to sign up to become a Cover One Pass member. That contribution helps give us the access to all the data and information we use to create the content that you love.
And I think most importantly, brings you into our community of insiders. It's a great community based on Slack. I know a lot of people don't want to be on social media anymore or be in on those conversations. We bring all of it to you right in our great community of educated fans. And most importantly, you get access to our content creators.
Even better than that, everybody loves merch. You get awesome t-shirts, a cool decal, and a letter from the Cover One team signed directly to you.
All for $60. That gets you the entire season, next year's free agency and draft. $60. Click the link in the description. Cover One Insider. Become one today.
There you have it, guys. That is the Cover One Pass. Make sure you subscribe to that. Definitely appreciate it. Moving forward, though, let's talk about some interesting stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, we just heard just a few moments ago, Trevor Lawrence just got a brand new contract. I'm going to bring that up right now in terms of what he's actually getting. Trevor Lawrence, per Ian Rappaport, the Jaguars have reached a deal with their star QB, Trevor Lawrence, sources say. They're giving former number one quarterback or number one pick a 5-year extension worth $275 million, $55 a year with $200 million guaranteed and $142 fully. Wow. That is a hefty deal. Hefty deal for Trevor Lawrence right there. A guy that, to be honest with you, I think has been a bit underwhelming in terms of what he's been thus far. I think that, if you look at where he's been, he's got all the arm talent in the world. And out of Clemson, they were talking like he was Andrew Luck, a guy that was going to be the next coming of one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. And in some ways, he's shown flashes of what people thought, but a lot of what you've seen thus far is a guy that, even given all the talent in the world, and boy, he's had a lot of it, he's had a ton of talent on that offense, just seems to fumble it away every single year. So, interesting that they continue to pay him that way. But what I will say, Josh Allen is about to get a pay raise. And even more than that, what an incredible contract by Brandon Beane there. Crazy. The money that Josh Allen is making in comparison to some of these quarterbacks right now in the NFL. So, interesting that that's going on, but I really love that the Bills are in a good position, and they've got a lot of young guys coming up. So, even though Josh is making a good amount of money, they've got a lot of young, good, kind of leveling out contracts that they're at. So they're on the other side of things now, which is really good. But yeah, Walter, I agree. I don't think there's any way that Josh doesn't get a pay bump at some point in the near future. He's got to get a little bit more money. And maybe Josh isn't all that care. He made a shit ton of money. Let's be fair. He made a ton of money. So, it is entirely possible that maybe he just doesn't really care all that much about that. So, but let's get into tonight's main topic, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about the AFC East. And what we're going to be talking about here, okay, is the idea that the Bills and how they look in terms of their roster by position group and how they rank. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off with quarterback right now, right out of the gate. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be listing off each position group, right? So we're going to start off with, and if you don't know, my hands aren't on the keyboard. My brother behind the scenes is going to be typing in what I think in terms of ranking. Feel free in the chat right now, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you think. What are your rankings? As we go through each one, we'll start off with quarterback. Tell me who you think is. Where do the Bills rank? Where do the Patriots rank? And it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Tell me who you think for each position. Who's number 1? Who's number 2? Who's number 3? Number 4? And obviously with the Buffalo Bills have Josh Allen, Mitch Trubisky, Shane Buechele. Three guys, Josh Allen being the number 1, probably the second best quarterback in the NFL. Mitch Trubisky, who I think is, all things considered, a pretty darn good backup quarterback, a guy that I think most teams would probably like. He's never going to be the guy anymore. When he came out, they thought he was going to be good out of North Carolina, never really kind of transpired. Didn't really get to that, first overall pick pedigree, but a guy that I think all in all is a good backup quarterback. New England Patriots right now. Drake May, the guy they got this year in the first round out of North Carolina. Again, no kind of surprising. Joe Milton, big time quarterback, huge arm out of Tennessee, and Bailey Zappi, a guy we know have been in New England for a couple years now. Miami Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa, Skylar Thompson, and Mike White, the ex-quarterback from the New York Jets. And then the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Peasley, and Jordan Travis. So if we're going to take a look, I think, just by sheer of like what we know, Josh Allen's the one quarterback that's been consistent. The Bills are number one. Then it comes down to number two. And if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, I think the Jets are the number two team in terms of quarterback talent. They could obviously push for that number one. Aaron Rodgers, future Hall of Famer, very, very talented at that. Number three is the Miami Dolphins with Tua and Skylar Thomas and Mike White. And then rounding out the number four spot is going to be Drake May, Joe Milton, and Bailey Zappi of the New England Patriots. Let's move into the running back position. I think this is one that's very, very interesting. Buffalo Bills have James Cook, Ty Johnson, and Ray Davis. I really love this group. I think, James Cook proved last year being the third running back in the NFL in terms of all-purpose yards. Ty Johnson, a guy we claimed from the Jets, really impactful when he came on the field. A really, really nice piece, bringing both thunder and lightning. And then you've also got, Ray Davis, a guy out of Kentucky who I think provides both, pass protection, really good power running, has some nice speed, but also great hands. Can catch out of the backfield, out of the flat. He's even run some verticals in college. I think he's a really nice piece. New England, another good running back room here, right? They've got Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson coming over from Washington. And then probably, I would say Jermichael Hasty is probably their number three. Miami Dolphins trotting out another good running back room. Raheem Mostert, the number one touchdown running back in the NFL last year. Devon Achane. And then probably, if you had to guess, Savon Ahmed is number three. And then the New York Jets, another good group with, led by Breece Hall. They also have Tariq Cohen, who's kind of a multi-purposes running back. And then Braylon Allen, a guy they got out of Wisconsin, who, to be honest with you, is a monster of a running back. So if I'm going to have to guess here, I'm going to say Miami's number one in terms of talent for running back. I want to say the Bills because I really like the Bills' offensive line. I'm going to say Bills are number two, Jets are number three, and Patriots are number four. I love Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall had his moments last year where he was really good. I think James Cook was a little bit in his own way, but I think totality, what he brings and with what he has, I think he's more of an impact player. Now let's get into the wide receivers, ladies and gentlemen. I think this is one that's highly contested. A lot going on here. Maybe Mike. It's possible. The tough part is I don't trust Tua. Aaron Rodgers is clutch personified. Tua is absolutely the farthest thing from a clutch quarterback. So that absolutely worries me in terms of what he is. I think it's close. I think Tua can absolutely bridge that gap and potentially overtake it. I think that there's a chance that he could be number two. But in terms of what Aaron Rodgers is, if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, he is a significantly better quarterback. And I think he just provides something that Tua just can't. So let's move on. Wide receiver. Buffalo Bills wide receiver core led by their number one pick, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, Chase Claypool, MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And then you got KJ Hamler. Just a wide mix, right? Andy Isabella, Tyrell Shavers, Brian Thompson. New England Patriots have a mix of... you've got Juju Smith-Schuster, Demario Douglas, Keyshawn Butte. You've got Jaquay Jackson, David Wallace, KJ Osborne, Jalen Reagor, Kendrick Bourne, Tyquan Thornton. And then two new guys, Javon Baker and Jalen Polk, two guys that Bills fans absolutely were clamoring for. I think they're really, really nice. I like this group. In fact, I think this is an kind of an underrated group. And I'm really intrigued to see, between Javon Baker, Jalen Polk, how they stand. KJ Osborne coming out of Minnesota, he's going to be interesting. The tough part is without good quarterback play, and we don't know what Drake May, Joe Milton, or Bailey Zappi are. That's tough. Miami Dolphins. I mean, probably the class of this group: Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Braxton Berrios, River Craycraft, Taj Washington, and Malik Washington, two very good ones. And then they also signed Odell Beckham Jr. Very, very nice group. I'm going to say Miami's probably number one right out of the gate just because of sheer talent, who they have. I think that's there. The New York Jets, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams. It'd be interesting to see what Mike Williams is. Mike Williams obviously has to fight off his injury woes that he's dealt with for a long time, but very talented, albeit a little bit older, a little bit longer in the tooth. Alan Lazard, a guy that has been kind of a disappointment. You got Malachi Corley, a name that a lot of Bills fans really wanted throughout the draft process. A guy that kind of is what they called Debo 2.0 or Debo Light. So a lot of good guys there. I really, really like their group. I'm going to say, I like the Bills group better. I'm going to say Bills are number 2. I think the Jets is a close number 3. And the only reason is I like Garrett Wilson. But after that, Mike Williams, man, is such a question mark with his health. So that's tough. And then I'm going to say New England Patriots is number 4. Though I think New England Patriots, man, I'm actually going to say Patriots are 3, Jets are 4. I'm going to get some heat on that. I think the Patriots are number 3. I like their talent totality and depth of what they have over. I love Garrett Wilson. But after Garrett Wilson, man, it's a question mark as to what Mike Williams is. Malachi Corley is a big-time question mark as a rookie, obviously. And then after that, Alan Lazard was a big disappointment for that team, and I don't really like anything else. I'm not a huge fan of what else they've got to kind of dump out there. So I'm just going to say that's what it is. Moving on, tight ends. Tight ends is a really nice, a really interesting group. Buffalo Bills, obviously, I believe, having the class of all of the AFC East. Dalton Kincaid, a guy who should be the number 1 target for Josh Allen this year, probably will be in the top 5 of all tight ends in terms of talent level this year, or at least in speculation should be. Dawson Knox, like I mentioned earlier, Dawson Knox is interesting. As if he comes back from his hand injury, he's been effective. And he doesn't have to be the number 1. And I think a number 2 Dawson Knox in terms of tight end is a perfect spot for him. I think he'll thrive and he'll flourish in that position. And then Quentin Morris is, honestly, nothing to scoff at. A very, very good number 3 tight end. A lot of teams would love to have the talent of a guy like Quentin Morris. New England tight end group. You've got Austin Hooper, Hunter Henry, and then just a couple mixed guys, Jaheim Bell, LaMichael Petway, Nick Leverett. Nothing special. Right. So I'm going to say Patriots are just number 4. I like Hunter Henry, but Hunter Henry it's been a long time since Hunter Henry was the Chargers' Hunter Henry. Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins have Julian Hill, Tanner Connor, Jody Fortson, Jonnu Smith, Durham Smythe. I like Durham Smythe and Jonnu Smith. I think that's a nice mix. Jody Fortson has been really good. And then the New York Jets. New York Jets having Zach Kuntz. Oh, my Lord. Caught myself there. Jeremy Ruckert, Tyler Conklin. I think that's the number 2 group. So I'm going to say Bills are number 1, Jets are number 2, Dolphins are number 3, and Patriots are number 4. Hopefully I don't get audio cap there. That was a close one. Before we get any bit further, guys, I want to tell you about Underdog Fantasy. Cover One is excited to once again partner with the most dynamic name in fantasy football, Underdog Fantasy. I want to tell you about the easiest way to get some action in the NFL. It's Underdog Fantasy and their pick'em game. Just pick higher or lower on your favorite or least favorite player stats, and you can win up to 20 times your money in a single night. Underdog Fantasy keeps it super simple with their easy-to-use website and mobile apps. Pick between 2 and 5 players to pick out your pick'em entry. Get every pick right. Take home some cold, hard cash. Use code COVER1 and get your first deposit of $200 doubled by Underdog Fantasy. There we are, guys. Let's continue on. So next we got offensive line. Offensive line is offensive line is going to be an interesting group here for the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills have pretty much everybody returning minus Mitch Morse. Obviously, you have Deion Dawkins, Connor McGovern, David Edwards. On the right side, you got Osiris Torrance and then Spencer Brown. Got an interesting group of backups. I really like the Bills' just depth with Alec Anderson. They drafted Cedric Van Pran Granger. You've also got, like I said, David Edwards potentially maybe coming off the bench. Tommy Doyle returning. Richard Garage. Lyle Collins that they signed. Ryan Vandemark. A really, really good quality just depth piece. I like the Bills in what they offer there. The Patriots. Patriots have Nick Leverett, David Andrews, who's been in the league for a long time, Antonio Maffei, Jake Andrews, City So, Cole Strange, a guy who was a bit of a question mark coming out, has done a really nice job, kind of solidified himself. Tyrone Wheatley, Calvin Anderson, Michael Owenwu, and Chukwuma Okafor, another tackle there. Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins have Liam Eichenberg starting at center this year after Connor Williams left. Isaiah Wynn at guard, Robert Jones at guard, and then they've got a mix at tackle of Teron Armstead and Austin Jackson. Teron Armstead being a good left tackle, but very, very injured, which is tough. And then the New York Jets, man, one of their weak points that it's been this way, and maybe they shorted up this off season. Joe Tittman, really nice center. Out of Wisconsin. Wait, Wisconsin? Yeah, Wisconsin. I was right. I couldn't read across the page there. John Simpson, a guy they got from the Baltimore Ravens. He had a bit of a rough year last year, but potentially looking to kind of get back on the right page. Tyron Smith, left tackle from the Dallas Cowboys they brought in. It'd be interesting to see if he can actually stay healthy. A talented left tackle, Hall of Famer more than likely. Morgan Moses, another very, very talented guy the Jets used to have. And Max Mitchell. So the tough part about this for the New York Jets, right? Obviously, this has been an Achilles heel. They've dealt with a lot of issues on the offensive line. More talent now this year, but a lot of question marks in terms of overall what they have. So Buffalo Bills, I'm going to say, are the number one in terms of overall talent. I'm going to say, I'm going to say the Jets are number two on paper. Dolphins. I like what the Dolphins have in Teron Armstead. I don't like the rest of it. I think it's a lot of question marks. So I'm going to say the Patriots are number 3 and the Dolphins are number 4. Obviously, those things can change based on health and how things shake out. I think the Bills are very fortunate to have not only the depth, but the starting caliber that they have. Connor McGovern stating today that he was really meant to be a center all along. So I think that transition from Mitch Morse to Connor McGovern should be fairly seamless, especially considering Connor was here all last year as left guard. Though you do have to wonder, could Cedric Van Pran Granger push to get that starting job, moving Connor McGovern back to left guard and having David Edwards as that sixth guy off the bench? So I really like this group totality. Moving forward, defensive line. Excuse me. Defensive line for the Buffalo Bills. You've got Gable Steveson. We'll see if he actually sticks on the Olympic gold medal wrestler. Dwayne Carter, guy we got out of Duke in the third round this year. Deshaun Williams and Austin Johnson, 2 guys that we signed, defensive interior guys, so they can kind of play all over the place. Daquan Jones, a guy that we re-signed this year, heart and soul of that D-line. Very, very impactful that we lost when we played the Jaguars in London. Ed Oliver, who continues to make people pay in terms of what they thought about his contract. Dwayne Smoot, another defensive end we brought in. Javon Solomon, a defensive end we brought in from Temple in the draft. Casey Toohill, a signed free agent. AJ Epinesa, another guy we re-signed on a great contract, potentially with some upward trajectory there. Von Miller, a guy that I think is gravy to what he's going to be doing. And then Greg Rousseau, a guy that's been a staple on the D-line, just a really, really stout run defender. We'll see if he can actually step up and maybe kind of add a little bit more of an element to his pass rush acumen. Then you got the New England Patriots. New England Patriots have a nice little group. You've got, Jeremiah Farms, Tristan Hill. You've got Armand Watts, Devon Godshaw, Dietrich Weiss, Christian Barmore, who's a very talented, just almost nose tackle, one tech. Keon White, who's a really, really nice defensive end. Will Bradley King, Jotham Russell, O'Shane Eastmine, Josh Uche, Anfernay Jennings, Matthew Judon. A good group. Really good group right there. Any chance you have the arm length on Gable? He's a small guy. I don't think he has massively long arms, so that's going to be a tough one. My guess is it's probably in the realm of what you would see is more the smaller, compact defensive ends. I don't have the exact numbers. Ian can probably look that up for you. Give me 1 second. Cheers, by the way. Miami Dolphins on the defensive line, who had a lot of losses this year, as well as some fairly big injuries with Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips. They got a good group, but we'll see how it all shakes out. They got Tier Tart, who they signed from the Tennessee Titans, Benito Jones. They got Zach Sealer, who's a very, very good defensive tackle. I like Zach Sealer a lot. They went and drafted Muhammad Kamara and Chop Robinson, and then also signed Shaq Barrett. I like a group very, very, it's, I would say, deeper, but a lot of question marks. A lot of question marks there in terms of how it all shakes out. So we'll see. And then the New York Jets, the class of the AFC East. I mean, the number one by far. And it is, I don't think it's really close. You've got Quinnen Williams. You got Michael Clemens, Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald, Javon Kinlaw, Leke Fotu, Solomon Thomas. Just a really good group. Tanzel Smart. I like the Jets. I like the Jets a lot. No, not his wingspan, his arm length. So I'm going to say the Jets are number one. I'm going to say the Patriots are number two, Bills are number three, and Dolphins are number four. And then we're going to move on in just 1 second. Feel free to take a look at that real quick what you guys think, and tell me if there's anything that sticks out to you guys, anything that particularly you disagree with, anything that you think would be better for you. Side note, I appreciate you guys being here tonight. Make sure you subscribe to the Cover One Pass, subscribe to the Cover One YouTube channel, and make sure you hit me with a follow on Twitter at the Thomas DeLoss. Means the world to me, guys. I appreciate all the interaction. So let's move on, guys. We're going to move to the next position group. Go ahead, Ian, throw that up on the screen. That is going to be the cornerback position. In terms of the Buffalo Bills, their cornerbacks start with Rasul Douglas, guy we traded for from the Green Bay Packers last year. The guy that's paired up with him, Christian Benford, a guy that out of Villanova a couple years ago has been really, really good. Really good. Khair Elam, a guy that we'll see what happens. Obviously, with John Butler being gone, maybe he'll get more of an opportunity. Kyron Brown, Daquan Hardy, two guys that are obviously unproven. Kyron Brown was pretty much non-existent on the roster last year. Daquan Hardy is a draft pick we just had this year. You got Jamarcus Ingram, a guy that has been pretty successful here, and then Taron Johnson, one of the best young, slot corners in the NFL. Moving on, New England Patriots. New England Patriots have a nice little cornerback room, starting with Christian Gonzalez, who's going to be returning from his injury. You got Jonathan Jones, Marco Wilson, Sean Wade. A good, nice group, nothing special, but, they've got a couple pieces. It all hinges on, is Christian Gonzalez the guy? Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins led by Jalen Ramsey, right, who last year graded as the 57th best corner. Kendall Fuller coming over from Washington. It'll be interesting to see how he shakes out. I like Kendall Fuller. They obviously signed Saran Neal. They have Nick Needham, Ethan Bonner, Kader Kohu. So a good group there. I really, really like what they have. Big question mark with Jalen. I think Jalen's a little bit past his prime, so we'll see. And then the New York Jets. New York Jets trotting out Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed. They also have Michael Carter, Brandon Eccles. Really good group. Isaiah Oliver, Quantes Stiggers, who's from the CFL. So good group. Jets obviously being number 1, Bills number 2, Dolphins number 3, Patriots number 4. Moving forward in terms of safety, you're in the wrong one, Ian. You're in GM, not corner. So Jets 1, Bills 2, Dolphins 3, Patriots 4. Next up, we got safety, and that's an interesting one because the Bills went ahead and retooled their entire safety room. Obviously signing Mike Edwards from the Kansas City Chiefs, a guy that's been pretty good for them for the last couple of years. You got Cam Lewis returning, a UB product. Taylor Rapp, a guy that was kind of that third safety, should see more time on the field. They went ahead and drafted Cole Bishop out of Utah, a guy that locked down Dalton Kincaid when they played together at Utah. So, interesting group right there. I like what they have. I like the turnover. It'll be intriguing to see how that kind of comes into place. The New England Patriots have Josh Bledsoe, Marte Mapu, Jabril Peppers, Brendan Schuler, and Kyle Duggar. Love that group. Love Kyle Duggar. And Marte Mapu, really nice piece last year. The Miami Dolphins, Marcus May, Cam Smith, Jordan Colbert, Patrick McMorris, Elijah Campbell, Jordan Poyer, and Javon Holland. Javon Holland's one of the best young safeties. Graded out as number 3 out of 95 in PFF last year. Very, very good safety. And the New York Jets. New York Jets have Tony Adams, Chuck Clark, Ashton Davis. Ashton Davis is very good. Jalen Key, Jarek Bernard-Converse. A good group. We'll see. Tony Adams and Chuck Clark were okay. Not special, but I do love Ashton Davis. So I'm going to say in terms of, who the Bills have, I like the Bills, but there's a lot of question marks. I like Mike Edwards, Cole Bishop. So in terms of who has the best group in totality, the Dolphins have number 1 with Javon Holland. Though I don't like Jordan Poyer, I wouldn't be surprised if they bring somebody else in. New England Patriots are number 2. I think it's really close between the Bills and the Jets, but I think the Bills are number 3 and Jets are number 4. I like Ashton Davis. I'm not a huge fan of the rest of their group, and I think in totality the Bills have a better core. Moving forward with linebackers, man, this is a good one for the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills are going to be returning one of the best young, one of the young, Matt Milano is on the back end of his career, but Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard, Balin Spector, Nicholas Morrow, Edefwan Olafashio, Deion Jones, Dorian Williams. Really good group. I mean, really, really, really good linebacker core right there. New England Patriots, Steel Chambers, who I think they just waived unless they picked him up. No, somebody else. They picked him up. Joe Giles Harris, who was with the Bills, Raekwon McMillan, Jelani Tavai, Siani Taktaki, Jawan Bentley, Christian Ellis, The Dolphins lining out David Long Jr., Duke Riley, Cam Brown, Jordan Brooks, Anthony Walker Jr., Channing Tindall. It's okay. Not a bad group. They lost some pretty big pieces this offseason. And then the New York Jets. New York Jets have Zaire Barnes, Marcelino McCrary-Ball, Quincy Williams, Jackson Sermon, Jimmy Ciarlo, Sam Aguavon, and CJ Mosley, Chaz Surratt, Jamie and Sherwood. The Bills are number 1. I think the Bills just have totality, a better group. Jets are number 2, Patriots number 3, and Dolphins number 4. I don't really like the Dolphins group, honestly. I think the Dolphins group is very it's fine. It's nothing special, but it is what it is. Moving forward, we got special teams, ladies and gentlemen. The special teams for the Buffalo Bills is very underwhelming. Tyler Bass, who had a very shaky last season and apparently starting off in this OTA and minicamp, hasn't been great. Punting is hit or miss in terms of what they have there with Sam Martin. He's fine. He's okay. He had a decent year last year in return, but he's been up and down. New England Patriots have Chad Ryland kicking for them and Joey Sly, as well as Bryce Behringer as their punter. Miami Dolphins have Jason Sanders, a very good kicker in the NFL, one of the best, and then Jake Bailey, another good punter. And then in terms of the New York Jets, Greg Zuerlein and Thomas Morstead. So I'm going to say Miami Dolphins number 1, New York Jets number 2. I'm going to say Bills number 3 and Dolphins number 4, just because Dolphins have a lot of like a little bit younger guys in terms of what they have there. So let's talk about head coach. I know this is position groups, but I think head coach and GM are important in terms of looking at the totality of what the Bills have in comparison to everybody else. Obviously, the Buffalo Bills trotting out, Sean McDermott. New England Patriots have Gerard Mayo. Miami Dolphins have, good old McDaniel. And then New York Jets have Robert Saleh. If you're looking at who's the best coach, Sean McDermott is totality the best coach there. Second, you got McDaniel. Number 3, I think it's Gerard Mayo. I'm not a huge fan of Robert Saleh. I think Robert Saleh is a pretty bad coach. He's just kind of been underwhelming just overall. And then you got GM. GM is, I think, one that's fun because we can talk about this for a second. I think that what you've seen out of Brandon Beane thus far has been really impressive. Because going into this season, I think a lot of people thought that the drop-off or the turnover was going to be tough for the Bills and they might regress. I think Brandon Beane found a really nice way of filling this roster out with good quality pieces, getting what he needed to backfill, but also not having a drop-off, if any drop-off at all. So I like Brandon Beane number 1. I think the fact that the Bills have been the class of the AFC lends itself to that. New England Patriots obviously have a new GM there. I'm blanking on his name. Ian, give me his name while you have a chance. Miami Dolphins is Chris Greer, and the New York Jets is Joe Douglas. New York Jets is number 2. They've put together a hell of a roster, and I think Joe Douglas has done a really nice job. I really, really love what Joe Douglas has done. Chris Greer is going to be number 3. He lost a lot of pieces. This roster is going to be a big-time question mark, and to be honest with you, what he does with Tua, Elliott Wood. Is it Wood? It's Elliott. Oh, Elliott Wolf. That's right. Not Wood. Elliott Wolf. And then Elliott Wolf's number 4. I think that Elliott Wolf could be right there with the rest of the pack. Could move up very quickly depending on how that New England Patriots roster kind of flips. So it'll be definitely an interesting one at that. So, guys, obviously, like you saw, I think the Bills have a really nice roster in comparison. Joe DeRosa. Hello. I really like what they have here. I don't think it's a bad group. I'll make sure to tweet this out so you guys can see how I feel, what people think, and how the Bills stack up in terms of their positions. But let's move on. We're going to talk a little bit about the stadium, and then we're going to get out of here because I am very, very tired. It has been a long week for me, and I still got to clean the house a little bit tonight. So, in terms of the stadium, it's some interesting stuff that has been put out there. But if you've seen, the Bills started off, they put the second tier on the stadium going up right now. One thing that I thought was very, very intriguing that I just found out recently is the Buffalo Bills moving forward into the new stadium are actually going to have it where parking, when you're going to the stadium, you are going to be designated to a parking spot or a parking, not a spot, a lot. So if you're a season ticket holder, you will be specifically in one spot moving forward. So that's going to be something to keep tabs on. The Bills actually just over the last 2 days have been releasing parking passes for the stadium for this season. They're still rolling out the stadium kind of just experience. So a lot of the information is still free flowing. The other part about this is you're starting to see the pieces of concrete. The stadium walls, as the Bills put out there, are coming and they're getting put in. There's over 1,400 of them. So the stadium is really kind of falling into place day over day. It's getting more and more interesting, so that's exciting there. But let's wrap up what we talked about tonight, guys. I really love, in terms of the Bills roster, where we're at right now. Obviously with the mini camp, the mandatory mini camp that just finished up today. A lot of the question marks about this team were, how would they do knowing that they lost Jordan Poyer and Mitch Morris and Tre'Davious White and, Micah Hyde potentially and Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis. A lot of very big pieces, captains and whatnot. And it very much seems that both the coaching staff, with Bobby Babich and Joe Brady stepping up as both OC and DC, in their new roles, but also some new blood with Jamil Adai coming in as the defensive backs coach, a new defensive line coach for the Buffalo Bills who had been under Eric Washington previously. His name is blanking me. But a lot of new guys that seem to be really kind of wanting to step up, and we'll see if it's just practice and they can put it on the field when it's important, like Chase Claypool, right? But I think there's a little bit more of, a veracity to this roster. A lot of guys that really want to be here, a lot of guys that maybe are making their impact felt. And even more so, I think the depth is still there. Every single year you have to worry with Josh Allen's contract inflating a little bit more year over year, how they're going to be able to navigate and still be able to fulfill the roster needs without, neglecting talent. Marcus West. Thank you, Joe. Marcus West is the new defensive line coach. Worrying if Brandon Beane every year can have the same quality of talent without a massive drop off because of total, cap space. But the nice thing is, it seems that he's found ways to get what he needed to get done. Really good pieces that he's brought in for good prices. And next year, there's going to have a ton of cap space to retool and add even more. And that's great. That's a big piece that I think is important for the Buffalo Bills in terms of staying not only competitive in the AFC East, but competitive in the AFC picture, because the AFC is getting better. I mean, if you look at, in totality, I'm going to real quick. When you look at all the teams, right? You've got in the AFC now, right? You've got the AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson. You got Joe Burrow. The Steelers have Russell Wilson, and the Browns have Deshaun Watson. All reasonable to, I would say, average to above average quarterbacks, and two very elite quarterbacks in Burrow and Lamar Jackson. The Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, Tua Tagovailoa. Who knows what Drake May is? Maybe he's a good quarterback. And then Aaron Rodgers, if he stays healthy. That's a bunch of good quarterbacks. AFC South, you got C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson. Will Levis make another step this year? And then obviously you got Trevor Lawrence, who just got paid tonight. AFC West, you got the Chargers, who have Justin Herbert. The Raiders, I have no idea what's going on with the Raiders ever. You got the Kansas City Chiefs, who is the class of the NFL with the guy, And then the Broncos. I have no idea what's going on with the Broncos right now either. But a lot of big-time teams in the AFC. I mean, what are you talking? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 out of 16 teams have a bona fide number one quarterback. Bona fide. That's a big deal for the Bills to make sure that they are staying competitive against their contemporaries, making sure that they can continually not only win the division, but keep fighting, because obviously for Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, their jobs are very much hinging on how the team does. Obviously, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist or me to tell you that. So I think they've done a really, really nice job in being able to stay competitive. And, like we did that kind of exercise tonight, I think they have good pieces that keep them competitive and do what they need to do to stay in the picture. So love what they did there. Love what they've kept, kind of just backfilling and making sure they've got good quality pieces for, reasonable to affordable, amounts, and obviously still have about somewhere between $8 and $10 million in cap space. So who knows what they're going to do from here? We'll see. A lot of speculation, but nothing to this point as to what could happen. So, but guys, I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight, and I'm glad to be back after a couple weeks. I've missed you guys. I missed kind of having this conversation and being part of all this. And it's good to not have died of a heart attack or anything like that. It was a little nerve-wracking, to say the least, that night, and being in the hospital for like 11 hours was it was hell on earth, to say the least. So glad to be here with you. Glad to be back. And I'm excited for the upcoming weeks heading into training camp, and we'll see what happens. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Means the world. So guys, we will see you here next week, next Thursday night, for another edition of Buffalo Late Night. You can follow me on Twitter at the Thomas DeLoss. Make sure you subscribe to the Cover One Pass and the Cover One YouTube channel, as well as their Twitter. Means the world to all of us. I love you. I'll see you here next week. Let's go. Buffalo.
The bills make me wanna.